So I'm going to start with the Bhagavad Gita. Let's start directly with chapter 1. Okay, here it's got to be a discussion because um, Lata madam, Lakshmi madam, do you want to say something?
No, sir, nothing as of now.
Okay, okay. I'm going to start off with the business of from chapter 1. What is the critical part of chapter 1? The main essence of chapter 1. Arjuna is going into combat and he's asking Krishna to take him between the two armies, and then he sees relatives readying themselves for a slaughter. He gets upset and then he says that uh, I don't want to do this, and and he puts his bow down. The essence of this is that it's happening to all of us. All of us experience this when there is change. So let us say that you've come for this particular meeting and you've allocated a particular time. The meeting is going on, but it's very interesting. You don't want to let go, and then, or the information that is coming in to you is beginning to get heavy, and you experience a lot of turbulence and agitation. So this is a very similar situation that we face in daily life. Whether we go to office and the boss suddenly says, I want a target which is unachievable, and then the first experience you have is, Arey Bapre, how am I going to do this? And then, or he says that you have to give part of your work to somebody else, and then you begin to get very insecure and you say, is he going to kick me out of the job? Things like that. So the first chapter by and large is about change management, the first part of change management. The change management that is experienced by Arjuna is what is experienced by all of us. Wherever we are, whether we are in office, in home, the person comes with a can of water, we are all looking, at that time we are doing something else, this person is coming, there is confusion, there is conflict, what to do first and things like that. Here I'm going to talk about a particular concept called Guna. Guna is an attribute, and in attributes we have three. First is called tamas, the second is called rajas, and third is called sattva. Tamo guna is essentially the same guna that Arjuna experiences when he is reviewing the armies and seeing all his relatives on the opposing side of the battle line. Tamas is characterized as inertia, as anxiety, as everything that is stopping you from um, absorbing information and acting on it. So that is tamas, and tamas is essentially a major aspect of the identity. It comes from the identity. The identity is, we are always seeking somebody to say, hey, you're a great guy. The reason why we do this is because we ourselves do not get our identity by ourselves from within, but we get it from other people. If all of you were to say, Vishwanath, your class is rubbish, then what would happen is that I would feel miserable. My entire sense of self-worth is dependent on you all telling me what I am, how I am, and my entire ability to do whatever I am promising I am going to do. So that sense of self-worth, when it comes under pressure, it withdraws within. This withdrawal within, the entire sense of self-worth withdrawing within itself, is called tamas. It is characterized by inertia, it is characterized by anxiety, by fear, and things like that. In our system, the owner of tamas is Shiva. So That is why you will notice that Shiva is always absorbed with himself. Is the controller of the identity. Now, whenever you reached that stage, you've understood that your ability to, you're getting anxious. What is the solution? You have got one of two solutions. One is either you can confront the solution or you can run away from the solution. You can run away from the situation. Either ways, these are the two options that you have. And this is precisely what Sri Krishna tells him in chapter 2. That boss, in any case you are going to die. Everybody here is going to die. So you have a choice. You can either fight and die, in which case people will say he fought a great battle. You can fight and win, in which case people will say you will be there to enjoy the fruits of your victory. Or you can run away, in which case people will say you're a coward. And that will hold you for your life. Whether, no matter where you go, people will say Arjuna was a coward, he never fought. So it is better to fight and accept the outcome rather than to run away. These are the options that you have. So what Sri Krishna tells him is that you have to act. Now this need to act in order to get an outcome is the application of energy or the application of effort, and this is called rajas. Rajas is the application of energy but not necessarily with intelligence. Like for instance, suppose you're doing something, very often you'll notice that you forget everything else. Suppose you're cutting vegetables and you're doing something at home, you're cooking. Very often you'll lose yourself in that particular activity, especially if you're doing stitching. You're doing stitching or knitting or something like that, which requires a lot of application and a lot of concentration. You will lose yourself, and this is called rajas. The owner of rajas is Brahma. Why? Because rajas always comes from passion. For example, in a sexual act, people forget logic. There is no logic. Similarly, if you are doing something of great significance, you will forget yourself. That is why you will, the entire effort that you're putting does not have, so if you are already practiced, then what happens is you are able to do it properly. Like for instance, in the last class, Lakshmi Madam said, how do we know? So the thing is that when you bring your entire thing, your entire consciousness down to a point where it is calm, it becomes a practice. If it is not a practice, it is something else. So that application of energy, of effort, is called rajas. And because rajas is a passion that has no control, Brahma is seated in the center, in the nabhi of Vishnu, who is the what you call the matrix on which control happens. Then that is sattva. Sattva is where the balance occurs. It is a harmonic state, and because Vishnu is the owner of that harmonic state, he controls creation. He actually provides the framework on which creation occurs. And Saraswati provides the knowledge on which creation becomes sensible. Otherwise, rajas by itself is a application of energy without necessarily use of brains or intelligence. So this is a very important thing that our system has exists. It talks about, but it is not necessarily completely understood. So here I am going to ask you all for your inputs. Hello?
I didn't hear you. What is that?
No, Anand sir, what I'm saying is, now so far I have spoken about gunas, that is tamas, rajas and sattva, and how they impact us in our daily life, the harmony, the how a stimulus comes to us, we get we take time to absorb the stimulus, and then the stimulus, either we agree with it or disagree with it, but then we have to overcome it in order to face the situation. And when we are doing it, we don't necessarily that energy that we apply is called rajas, and then the balance that comes to us after having achieved it is called sattva. So this this process of managing data, of processing of a situation, is a very natural process which is aligned with the way nature itself moves. So I wanted to ask you all what your views are in this particular because this is something that is not generally spoken about in the way I have laid it out as a daily use thing, gunas being a daily use aspect of life.
Sir, may I talk, sir?
Hello.
Hello, sir. May I talk, sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, your example actually got me thinking when you were explaining tamas, rajas, and sattva, how we evolve into sattva. The example you gave about how um, our feedback or our expression would, in an example form, would affect you. If someone says, no, the class is not good, same thing happens to us also when someone tells us what you did is not right. But sir, the self-worth that you spoke about, tamas quality, that is largely tied to societal rules, is what I thought. In the
Oh
sense,
yes.
for example, if I am a mother, my primary job is to take care of the house. So now suppose I refuse to say cook on time or do my basic household duties. But if I start feeling that no, my sense of self-worth need not be dependent on what the society thinks of me. And if I start just being myself, okay, this time I would like to do my yoga practice. I don't want to provide breakfast on time, for example. Naturally, people will think that I am not worthy of anything. But if I start thinking that no, I should just go by my own, this is where I'm having a conflict, sir. I also face it many times in life. In the sense, only when we are useful to the society is when we get a certain worth. But if we are not living up to the societal standards, it's again, you're getting me my point, sir.
Absolutely. You're bang on.
So how
So
to do that, sir?
you moved out of guna into dharma. So
Acha.
I'm going to ask you to hold it, and then we'll get inputs from others.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Does anybody have any views on the subject?
May I speak, please?
Please.
Yeah. So going with what Lakshmi Madam said, so only when I fulfill my soul duties, even to start with, not even what societal duties, but my soul duties, only when I fulfill it, do I feel a sense of worth.
Correct.
Yes. So where does that? What if I fail in my soul duties? That what I'm expecting. So does that dent my self-worth in any way? Because very often we come across this, that whatever circumstances happen, whatever happens in your life, nothing can touch your source and your soul because they're one. Yeah, that's the worth. But when even something as simple as making a cup of chai for my husband in the morning, if that day for some reason I'm not able to do it, so will I be failing in my soul duty? Will I need to feel less in my self-worth?
Okay. So actually we've moved out. Both the questions are getting into the into the realm of Dharma. Okay, so I think I'll move into Dharma now. Dharma, let's look at the word itself. Dharma comes from the root word dhr. Dhr means steadfast, that which is natural, which is held in a steady manner. If you remember, we do Padmasana. Why do I say do Padmasana? So that you'll be in a steady. You'll be sthiram. You'll be steady, and you'll be like you unshakable. Now I'm going to ask this question because then we will have a better conversation kind of thing. When is it that you are steadfast, steady, and at peace with yourself? Come on, somebody, one of you all, please tell me. When is it that you are at peace, you are stable, you are chilled out, you are at peace with yourself?
When I fulfill what my mind desires to do.
So when your actions are congruent with your natural state, then you are at peace?
No, I didn't mean that.
Hmm.
I did not mean that. I meant like from the intellect point of view that I need to do this, I need to do that. So if I fulfill what my mind dictates me to do, then I'm in a state of I imagine that to be peace, but actually that is not peace. Now I'm learning that there is something beyond that, beyond the intellect, which is the cause for giving me peace and not this. But right now, to fulfill those, what my mind dictates, gives me my certain amount of peace.
Okay. So let's start. Let's use this as a starting point. Your intellect, your buddhi tells you that this is what I am supposed to do. When I do this, I am in a state of peace. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So where does the buddhi get its stimulus from? The buddhi gets its stimulus from some place. The buddhi gets its stimulus from some place. It cannot come from nowhere. No, it comes from within you only. Correct? So where does that stimulus come from?
My sense of right and wrong, sir. If it matches my sense of right and wrong, I am at peace.
Okay. So what you're saying is when your buddhi tells you that my action is conforming to my sense of right and wrong, and your action is in conformance with that sense of right and wrong, you are in a state of peace.
Yes, sir.
Now the point is that where does that come from? Where does that sense of right and wrong come from? Jayashree madam, are you also in the same argument agreement?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes.
So where does that sense of right and wrong come from? The duality, where does it come from?
Because you've grown up watching it, listening to it, experiencing it, and absorbing it. Yes.
So what you're saying is it is your conditioning.
Yes.
You have been told that this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. This is heaven and this is hell. So basically, when your actions are in conformance with that, your buddhi tells you that it is okay. And when your buddhi tells you that it is okay, and when you perform your action according to that, you are at peace. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now let us go back. Let us trace that particular thought process right down to its source. Okay. Where does that come from? Where does that stimulus, the conditioning, come from? Anybody wants to take a guess? Come on, everybody. We need participation. This is like
the intelligence.
Correct. Yeah, intelligence is telling you where. So the thing is that even the intelligence is coming from some place. No, sir. Everything that you're talking about, your intelligence is also based on your conditioning. People have told you this is right, this is wrong. The ego, okay. The ego is one, but the ego is the holder of that intelligence. Where does that come from? Where does that See, the ego has been taught, trained to do in a particular manner, right? We know the Pavlovian concept of a dog salivating whenever the bell was ringing. So everybody is familiar with Pavlovian this, right? Law of conditioning.
It's a very
So
subjective thing, sir. Because for
no, no,
one,
no.
one may be conditioned thinking that is right.
Mm,
Another may be conditioned looking at it in a different manner.
correct.
So it's a kind of little bit subjective. I don't know why from
It is
it will
not.
come ownership.
That is,
Yeah,
you're right. That is why you have Ukraine and Russia. You have Israel and Palestine. Right and wrong often become
right.
subjective, and then you get into conflict. Now, where does that come from? I'm asking a question.
It is coming
Where
from
does
Atma.
so where does okay? How does the Atma learn that this is right and this is wrong?
The need to feel more power, the need to feel that I am
Power,
better.
the power. Okay, so this is a fantastic
It comes from
state of
Viveka.
Viveka is the discrimination between permanent and temporary. Okay, now the question is here I'm going to take you all back into the way we are born. When we are born with a DNA. Our parents give us our DNA. Now that means it is somewhat like a computer. In a computer, you have a motherboard. The motherboard has a chip which tells you your processing capacity. You can be an 8-bit machine, a 16-bit machine, a 32-bit machine, a 64-bit machine, a 128-bit machine, depending on your capacity to process data. The second thing that happens is that the um the data is then held in memory. Some people have more memory, some people have less memory. Also, as you grow up, if you don't remove old memory, you only have a lot of old memory and you have no space for new memory. We also become old. The computer is no longer capable of handling a lot of information as it is in the network. In the network, there are newer computers which are moving faster. We with older processors and older this who have got older software are unable to match up with that network. Am I correct? Are you all getting me when I'm giving you this comparison of the self with the computer?
Yes, sir. Getting.
Now, what happens is there is one more thing that happens which we will deal with at a later stage. It is called prarabdha karma. That is, we are destined to be born to a particular set of parents based on our karma. This is the fundamental law of karma. We will go into that a little later. That we are destined to be inserted into a family, into a setting, into a room, into a this. The fact that we are all sitting and talking to each other is prarabdha karma. We are meant to be talking to each other. My talk will give certain stimulus to certain people in a particular manner. All that is prarabdha karma. That is, I am meant to be telling somebody and somebody is listening to this. It is triggering something else in the other person's mind, in the brain. And the outcomes are already being generated. It is not necessarily going to manifest today, but the outcome generation has already started. So that is prarabdha karma. But now let us look at how the process of decision making starts. So when we are born, we have only 4 major things that we can do. We know how to eat, we know how to sleep, we know how to cry, and we know how to perform our ablutions. That's all. Otherwise, we are helpless. The first person who gives us our operating system is our mother. So, what happens is that the mother is the one that is giving you the loading the operating system in you. She says this first thing that she will say is, she will never say don't do it. She will only hold you and give you a sense of security. That is the most critical thing that the baby learns, the sense of security. And that comes from the mother's arms being around it. And the child has been with the mother for the entire process of immediate birth and post-birth. Then the mother tells the father, child, this is your father. And both the mother and the father believe the mother. The child and the father believe the mother. It is from the mother that the operating system then gets loaded in the first few years. Then the two parents load the child with the operating system. Everything that is called right and wrong, that is defined by society as acceptable, not acceptable, is defined by parents. Now, whatever we consider to be right, I must give my husband a cup of tea, may not have been taught by the mother, but it has been demonstrated by the mother. So that is being held down, which is why in our system, the marriage is conducted in the girl's house. Why? Because the first fire that is given, the yajna, that is done during vivaha samskara, the fire is given by the girl's mother. So, what does this signify? This signifies that the dharma or the conditioning of the family is matrilineal. The mother is the one that is the holder of dharma. That is why she is called Saha Dharmacharini. She is the one who brings the conditioning of the house. She determines when the family will get up, what will be the food that is cooked, how the food will be, how the family will run. And that is demonstrated by the Grahyagni, that is the house fire. And that owner is the lady of the house. So, from the mother comes dharma of the house, and thereafter the dharma of the society. Whereas Gotra or the Y chromosome comes from the male. So, Gotra is patrilineal, whereas dharma is matrilineal. This is something that is there in our vivaha samskara. At a later date, whenever we have the time, if we have the time, we can go into vivaha samskara in great detail, and you will be shocked, astounded to see how wise our ancient rishis were, and the way they designed our marriage ceremonies to ensure that the understanding of Gotra and the Dharma, who owns Dharma, how Dharma is propagated in the home and by extension in society is by the female. It's something that we can discuss at a later date. But to answer your question, where do you get your sense of right and wrong? Where do you get your sense of identity? Where do you get your security that this is right and I'm okay? That comes from the mother. Basically, the mother is the one that gives you first your sense of security. Then your mother gives you the sense of security that it is okay to deal with other people. And then suppose you are unable to deal with somebody, it is the mother that tells you, hey, listen, don't worry about it. The first few months or years, the child is completely with the mother. And the way the mother deals with the situation is the way the child begins to pick up things. I'm not saying that the father doesn't have a role. I'm saying that the bulk of this particular thing is done by the mother. Whether it is in the human being, whether it is in animals, you can see the lions, in tigers, everywhere. It is the female who actually nurtures dharma of a particular species or being. The second thing is that dharma, therefore, means the natural state. The natural state of any entity becomes its dharma. That is, the dharma of most human beings is to follow the circadian rhythm. We go to sleep at night, we wake up in the morning, we perform our ablutions, have a bath, whatever, and then we follow a particular routine. This is the way the nature is. It follows the sun. And that is a dharma that is instilled by nature in us. The nature of running a home is an acquired nature, and that nature is provided by the home in which we live. Our parents tell us that this is how we will live our lives. Our father and mother, and the father will take us to school in the motorcycle, drop us off in the school. All those things happen. So this is a very important aspect, and I don't know if in explaining this I have answered both you, Lakshmi Madam, and Jayashree Madam, your questions. Have I answered the questions?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
also
sir.
reminded
Yes,
of
sir.
one post which Ram Mohanji has posted, which I'm trying to search, about Shiva being the passive power, and then Shakti is the power. It's more like the potential energy and the kinetic energy. It's like that. So I'm just reminded of that. I'm not getting it exactly right, but there's something to that effect which he had posted, which I'm searching.
Okay, that you've gone into that is slightly different in the kind of. It is definitely that the male is the passive component and the female is the active component. I'm not disputing that, but the point I'm making here is Shiva Shakti is is a slightly different ball game. Okay, so if you were to take, if you were to take the basic the shloka, the first shloka of Saundarya Lahari, Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yeti Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitam. What happens there is, without Shiva there is no Shakti, without Shakti there is no Shiva. Now, what is the meaning of that? The identity. Okay. Now, for instance, you know me as Vishwanath. Vishwanath, as an individual, is a nobody. If I did not act, you would not know that I am Vishwanath or I am this. Similarly, unless I behaved, I acted, my identity will not get manifested. This is a very tricky subject. Have you all? I will explain this once again. The I, Vishwanath, is nothing unless he manifests or he acts. But the action, it cannot happen unless Vishwanath exists, the I exists. The I is Shiva, the manifestation is Shakti. Without the manifestation, Shiva's identity will remain unmanifest. But without Shakti, Shakti cannot act without the identity being there. Have you all understood this part? This is a very important base of yoga-vidya.
Yes, sir.
Has this got something to do with the first bit you said about the Rajas, Tamas, and the Sattva? That Shiva is Rajas? Yeah? Okay.
Shiva is Tamas. Shiva is Tamas.
Oh, sorry, Tamas. Yeah, Tamas.
So how does Shiva's Tamas manifest? Suppose, this is brilliant. I mean, I'm glad you triggered this question. Now the thing is that, suppose you're meeting somebody, okay, that person treats you like kachara, or he basically rubbishes you. What happens is you feel miserable, right? So what happens? First, when you met somebody, your sense of self, Shiva, manifests. Shakti goes out, meets the other Shakti. That Shakti, Shiva says no. So what happens? There is a rejection. So Shakti comes back and drives inward. So the Shakti moves into Shiva, and Shiva's identity thereafter is unable to manifest. That is Tamas. The manifestation or external representation of Shiva is Rajas. And when they are in balance, it is Sattva. Are you all able to understand this? It's a very beautiful, it's a very subtle but brilliant concept.
Could you repeat that part? When they are in balance, what did you say?
Okay, let me explain this again. I am Vishwanath. I manifest. Okay. And let us say that the person who I meet dumps me. He ignores me. What will happen? I have manifested. That is from myself. The Shiva within has manifested. Manifested that has been rejected. The feedback is given to Shakti. Shakti comes inward into Shiva. When Shakti drives inward into Shiva, what happens? Shiva can no longer move because the dynamic principle ceases to exist. What happens? The dynamic principle moves into the static principle. So there is only static. There is only an inertia. That is tamas. So Shiva, whenever somebody treats you like kachada or somebody dumps you, you go into yourself. No, you feel a misery when you just go into yourself, and basically you are unable to move after that. That is the inertia principle, the principle of static. So what happens is that is tamas. However, when somebody says, "Hey, how are you?" what happens is that you feel great. And at that time, there is a lot of energy that is transacted between the two of you. And that is rajas. A lot of action is happening. Both of you are in great shape with each other. At that time, the amount of thinking you are doing about yourself is very low. The static principle is reduced. The dynamic principle has gone up. At one point, when you are doing meditation, both the static and dynamic principles begin to settle down and you come to a state of balance. This is what Anand sir was talking about. I couldn't feel anything. Means what? It means that the I, whether I want to expand out or come in, neither is existing. Both are settling down. And that there is a balance, a sense of harmony within the self. That is sattva. Lalita madam, have I answered your question?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Dhanyavad.
So yes.
Shiva or the tamas is manifest, which is that means there is actually no trigger for it, right?
See,
there is no trigger for it. It's just a manifest. It's a being. It's a manifest.
The manifestation is not happening. That means Shakti is embedded within Shiva. She is unable to get out. Shiva is not allowing her to go because he is the entire sense of identity is driven into static position, into zero, towards zero.
So Shiva is a form of resistance.
No, it's your sense of identity. The sense of identity is not necessarily a resistance. The sense of identity is very nebulous. It is when it is accepted, it increases in size. When it is not accepted, it reduces in size. And that is because there is a weave between the sense of identity and the manifestation of that identity. The sense of identity is Shiva. The manifestation of the identity is Shakti.
Okay, so Shakti, like you said, you go meet somebody. You're a manifestation, you meet somebody is cordial to you, then you feel good. Somebody is not cordial to you, you feel rejected. Okay, and
Correct.
that it creates that. So what I'm trying to ask is, so that manifestation has no trigger. The Shakti has internal and external triggers, right?
No, see, the thing is, you need to get one thing. Both Shiva and Shakti are what do you call are mobile. They are floating. They are not necessarily static beings. Shiva is completely dependent on Shakti for expression. Now, when when Shakti moves, but Shakti cannot move without Shiva providing the impetus. So when Shiva provides the when Shiva sees something, so now the thing is that Shiva can only get that impetus or the feeling that I exist when there is a framework. So, like for instance, I will only feel comfortable when I have the framework, when I can function in a framework. Now, this framework is man-made. It is not. It does not actually exist. It is made by me in order to feel comfortable. Correct? Now, what happens is that when I am functioning inside this framework, I've got a sense of comfort, then I manifest. But if you treat me with disdain, what happens? When I manifest it, it is Shakti that is going out. Shakti brings back the feedback. And she drives, she says, boss, I got kicked. And so what happens? That kick transmits itself into Shiva, and Shiva begins, and the driving of Shakti into Shiva means that Shiva begins to move less, no?
Yes.
First Shiva is moving out, that means he is lightened. And then when he comes back, when Shakti comes back and she is not able to get a confirmation of existence or of self-worth, Shiva begins to stop moving because he doesn't know what to do now. Actually, it's not male or female. It is just a static and dynamic principle. Okay, but we are saying male and female because it's convenient. Because it is true that the female component is the one that is highly mobile. And so what I'm trying to say is that you cannot have this whole business of discrete entities. These are not discrete entities. These are combined entities. They weave with each other, which is why this is called Tantra. Tantra means weave. And the yoking of Shiva with Shakti is yoga. The understanding of that yoking is yoga-vidya.
And sattva is entirely under our control.
What is under our control?
The sattva. The component of sattva.
You see, everything therefore again comes down to the framework. If, for instance, today you were to be transported from here to Israel and put on the Gaza Strip, would you be comfortable?
No.
No. Now the thing is why? Because a base security state is not there, number one. Number two, you are out of a place which you understand. You may be vegetarian. There you might not get any vegetarian food. And everybody will be eating beef. And you don't know what to do. I don't know what your dietary restrictions are. But the point I'm making is that your food is different. The water is different. The place is different. There is war. So what happens? There is change, no? Then the framework has changed. When the framework has changed, what happens to you? No matter, even if you are with the most comfortable person, you are going to be insecure, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So what that means is that the sense of identity has first got to be in a framework of comfort. If you are in the framework of comfort and then you are practicing more comfort, then you will reach a state of sattva. Because there, first of all, Shiva is in a place of comfort. Shiva is no longer feeling insecure, and then he and the dance between Shiva and Shakti begins to reach a stage where they are in harmony with each other. They are resonating with each other. Correct?
So yoga-vidya is all about attaining that balance even in a state of discomfort, right?
Correct. But that will come only through enormous amount of
No,
practice.
ultimately, that is the mission, right?
When you are not dependent on the framework, yes.
Okay.
Which is what
Okay,
sannyasa is. In sannyasa, what do? First of all, you lose your name. Second, you are not allowed to stay in one place. Third,
Mm.
you cannot take your money and buy food. You're always expecting bhavati bhiksham dehi. You're always expecting somebody to give you food. That means what? You don't have a framework. Your framework is completely taken away from you. So what happens to you? You have to then accept nature as it gives you. If you don't get food, you sleep hungry. That is why sannyasa is so difficult, no? Everybody doesn't become a sannyasi. Am I getting through? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. That was very, very nicely done. Thanks.
So now dharma, we need to talk a lot more on dharma, because dharma is the foundation on which the asmitā, my sense of self, resides. Because that sense of self becomes very, very insecure if dharma is not there. Which is why in all yoga-vidya lessons, even in the Bhagavad-Gita in chapter 4 or 5, Srikrishna says you have to be in a country which is well governed in order to get into a state of sattva. If the country is not well governed, then you will, no matter how hard you try, you will be constant. If, like for instance, let us say that you are in a society where the neighbors are fighting with each other. You are constantly having trouble with each other. Will you be in a state of peace? You will always be disturbed, correct? There will be turbulence everywhere and all the time, correct?
Yes, yes.
So then what happens is that if you are not in a position, if people are, so the framework is the base on which you can build your own individuality. So that means the country must be well governed, the state must be well governed, the society must be well governed, people must be comfortable with each other. Only then can you sit in one place and start settling down all the agitation which is within yourself. But the interesting thing is, once that settling down happens within the self, then it slowly becomes independent of the framework in which it is attached, because it becomes secure within the self. So the lesson here is, we start off by needing external affirmation of our identity, but thereafter, once we become secure within the self, thereafter our need for external identity reduces. So that is why I keep telling you that vijnana, that is our awareness of the external environment, is the one that holds us in the framework. But as our jnana increases, our cognition of the self increases, our need for vijnana reduces, our prajñā increases, our awareness of our existence increases. And that is the practice of yoga. That is what we have been doing throughout. We have first done pranayama, then we do dhyana. So in pranayama, what do? We begin to get comfortable with the physical state of existence. And then slowly the physical state begins to get removed. And then what happens is that the thing that is left behind is just the I. So Shiva and Shakti are comfortable within the self, and slowly they merge until there is nothing left. And that is basically what yoga is all about. Is that understood? So we need
Very,
to
very
work.
nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we need to work on dharma, the understanding of dharma a little more. We need to work on the understanding of Shiva and Shakti, the identity, how the identity functions. One last question I have before we'll wrap up today is on Vijayadashmi. I was just thinking that maybe 15 minutes we'll just do one round of breathing, and then I'll teach you Kapalabhati on Tuesday in the morning. Just 15-20 minutes, not more than that. I'm sure it's a weekday and everybody, also it is Vijayadashmi, a lot of you will have a lot of things. So will let us say 8 o'clock in the morning be okay on Tuesday for 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour on the outside.
Okay.
So I'll put it
Yeah,
in the
sounds
group.
good. Yeah.
So 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, half an hour we'll do Vijayadashmi, and 7:30 we'll do on Tuesday. And because once you start something, you should also continue on the next day. So Tuesday, Wednesday also we will do for half an hour, or Wednesday we can do even less, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just so that the continuity is maintained. Because you should, uh, when you start a lesson, you have to do it on the next day also. So if you don't mind,
7:30?
7:30 should be all right.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
okay. So with that, I'm going to request you to let that we close today. If you have any questions, please do ask me. And do you all have any questions?
Just grateful for a very nice session. Thank you.
Okay. Now, one last thing. I mean, I spoke about this earlier also. I have somebody has asked me to do a session um, on yoga, 10 episodes for 10 minutes each. So please do give me your feedback on what you think can be a useful session for normal people, uh, because here you all are all pretty much clued into the way our system works, the ancient civilization. But for people who may not have so much exposure, how to make it something that is interesting and to keep their attention, so that at the end of 10 sessions, they would all have come to at least the starting point of where you were. Uh, what you take for granted, they may not take for granted, or they must then get to a stage where they say, okay, I know what we are and the way to go forward. So please do give me your suggestions as to how I can structure um, the overall
Sir,
presentation.
Tuesday 7:30 means 7:30 in the morning or evening?
Morning. It is Vijayadashmi, no? So it has to be in the morning.
Yeah, okay, sir.
No, please. Just we'll make it very short and quickly. I'll wrap it up. I'll not waste your time because it's. I understand maybe you may be busy and things like that, but because it's Vijayadashmi, um, and we have to honor the mother.